if you did a great job on a task, what would be the most meaningful way I could recognize you and reward you for that task? Rather than by assuming that our culture has a one-size-fits-all kind of practice, I've now personalized to that individual and shown a great deal of interest in them.
Welcome to another episode of All In Recruitment by Manatal, where we explore best practices, learnings, and trends with leaders in the recruitment space. If you like our content, please subscribe to our channels on YouTube and Spotify to stay tuned for our weekly episodes. I'm your host, Lydia, and with us this week is workplace culture expert, Dr. Joey Faucette, who is also the founder and president of Work Positive. Glad to have you with us, Dr. Joey.
Lydia, I'm absolutely delighted to be with you today. Thanks so much.
See, your work revolves around transforming workplace culture. And so tell us why this has become a critical part of running businesses today, Dr. Joe.
Yeah, well, there's multiple causalities behind the rise of an emphasis on work culture. One of which is the global economy, and you and I today are proof of that, right? We're 12 hours apart and two different sides of the globe. So the fact that you can attract, as an employer, that you can attract top talent from anywhere on the globe means that employees have a choice. And employees, especially Gen Z, are always going to gravitate toward that culture in today's work environment that has psychological safety, respect, learning and development, these kinds of traits built into it. And so that work culture supports all of that. And that's why work culture is so important today. If you want to innovate, create, and become extremely profitable.
And the work culture that you speak of, this transformation process is very much an internal process, isn't it? And that gets reflected outside when you want to attract talent. So how does it work when you want to transform a workplace culture from within, where you have multiple generations working together at the same time?
The multiple generation factor is a huge challenge for many of us. I guess that's a nice word. For others of us, it's a constant nightmare. But just recognizing basic humanity in the work culture today is part of it. My generation, Lydia, the baby boomers, we were just told, suck it up, Skippy, put your head down, do what you're told. It was a command and control kind of environment. Today, with millennials and Gen Zs becoming more than 50% of the workforce, and certainly the top talent from which your listeners are going to want to recruit, they insist on, even demand, a work culture in which they can collaborate, in which they get a coach. In fact, mentoring is the number one request of Gen Z. And they also are interested in reverse mentoring, that is, mentoring someone my age in a certain skill set or something like that. So that difference in expectations generationally really stretches the work culture. There are a lot of boomers my age who are actually selling their companies now for pennies on the dollar because of this frustration with the multiple needs among generations and their inability to handle it. So that creates an amazing opportunity for investors, as well as those who understand how to manage and lead multiple generations and respect their basic differences.
Now, in your work positive framework, you have a framework that that can be used to transform workplace culture. So, in this work positive framework, how can recruiters and even hiring managers be able to identify candidates who could contribute to a positive work culture beyond just technical skills?
Right. Well, for more on the work positive framework, your listeners can go to workpositivebook.com, and I'm happy to send them a free copy of it, just so they can understand the framework even more. But in terms of, let me just give you a quick rundown of those 5 core practices. The first one is perceive. That has to do with a positive mental mindset. The second is conceive. That's all about how to form, create, and sustain positive relationships. The third is believe, and that's engagement of employees with their work. The fourth is achieve, which I know you have a particular interest in. That's productivity, because we know from HBR studies and other research that companies that are serious about architecting a positive work culture see at least a 30% increase in productivity among their employees. And the fifth is receive, and this is the recognition, expression of gratitude factor, both within and without companies. So with customers as well as within your teams. Now, how can you hire persons who do that? I love to ask questions. I'm an executive coach, a PCC with ICF. And so powerful questions are how we learn and help others transform their own personal culture as well as a work culture if they're a leader. So just asking the recruit various questions like, what's your morning routine?
Mm.
That gives you an opportunity to discover if they're intentional about personal development, for instance, and personal mindset and things like that. Tell me about a successful work relationship you had. That really gets at the conceive core practice. Then for believe, you're looking after emotional engagement there. Tell me about your best day ever at work. Then that's going to help really know what engages them rather than just doing a pulse survey and then get great results. You now have something demonstrable and an action that you know that person enjoys taking. For the achieve core practice, tell me what helps you get into the flow of work when you feel like you're really getting the work done. And then that fifth question is a way to discover how they prefer to be recognized. So if you did a great job on a task, what would be the most meaningful way I could recognize you and reward you for that task? Rather than by assuming that our culture has a one-size-fits-all kind of practice, I've now personalized to that individual and shown a great deal of interest in them.
Dr. Joey, what is the Kevin culture, as you call it? What does it look like and where does it manifest?
Yeah, Lydia, just imagine the most toxic culture you've ever worked in. One where there's bullying and backbiting and just a negative drain. And when you wake up in the morning, you wake up with a headache and oh no, when you look forward to Friday more than Monday. That's Kevin culture. Now, I named it Kevin culture for a couple of reasons, but the most interesting is I had a client who was describing her boss. The Society for Human Resource Management, of course, tells us that at least 57% of all people leave a job because of a bad boss. And 2/3 of those who stay are thinking about leaving because of that same bad boss. So bad bosses are a problem. And so this woman was going on and on and on about her bad boss. And I said, well, just for a frame of reference, because this conversation is confidential, what's the boss's name? And with all the venom you can imagine, there spewed out, Kevin. And I'm like, I expected her head to start turning or something. Terrible. Kevin culture is that culture that we all at some point in our journeys, or I should, most of us have worked for. So the opportunity to take one step away from Kevin culture is with that framework, the work positive framework. Just pick one of those 5 core practices. They're bundles of habits that anyone can learn, regardless of where you are on the team or in an org chart. Just pick one of those core practices and then pick one tactic, one thing you can do starting today to help build that positive mindset or those positive relationships, or to engage yourself, or to become more productive, or to recognize a teammate. Just do one thing, and then that begins moving you away from Kevin culture, because literally, Lydia, you see what you look for. And so when you begin looking for those opportunities to improve the culture, you find them. It's just in Kevin culture, there's so many, it's hard to know where to start, right?
But how do you know when the culture in a team is actually Kevin culture? How do you identify or even establish that?
How do you establish that it's a Kevin culture?
That it's Kevin culture.
You wake up in the morning with a headache or
All right.
terrible pain in your stomach. You have to convince yourself to go to work, even when you're the boss. You know that persons are disrespectful towards others in conversations, or constantly pointing out mistakes of someone else, or they're the obvious signs of bullying and things like that.
And what are your top 3 recommendations when it comes to creating a workplace culture that keeps, nurtures, and even retains their top talent?
Yeah, the first thing would be to recognize that you do have control over your own destiny. You can choose to work positive even in a Kevin culture. Does it
Mm.
require a lot more energy? Sure, it does. But you can create your own personal culture, if you will, in the midst of that. The second thing I would say is that, again, go back to those 5 core practices and just choose one. If I were to choose for you, Lydia, I would choose the perceive core practice as a great place to start, because a
Mm.
positive work culture starts and stops in your head first. What are your thoughts? What do you find yourself focusing on? Is it the problems or the opportunities? And this is far more than, if I think I can play basketball, dunk a basketball, I will. I never did quite achieve that feat, even though a person shorter than me have. However, it gives you an opportunity to focus on those goals. And as soon as you get clarity within yourself about what those positive goals are, and for how you can move your culture within the Kevin culture forward, then your mind goes to work on closing those gaps and to solving that challenge that's in front of you. And the way presents itself. And so there's the path in front of you. So that would be where I would start, with the perceived core practice and creating a positive mindset.
Mhm. Could you walk us through your achievement prescription and how this can be applied, maybe specifically to talent acquisition and even, wider team building?
Yeah, well, thanks. That's a really big question. Those two applications have
Yes.
a fertile field for planting and harvesting. So the achievement prescription, Lydia, really focuses on all of 5 of the core practices, but particularly the first 4. So
Mm.
attention is the first part of the prescription. What do you give your attention to? Positive thoughts and positive people are where we like for the culture to transform around, so that you're growing positive people and you're thinking positive thoughts. So give your attention to positive people and positive thoughts. Plus intention. Intention is really that believe core practice. So you're emotionally engaged with your work. Simon Sinek talks about it as your why. You're wanting to engage your why with the daily activities in which you find yourself, and then connecting that to the mission of the company, because that's the noblesse oblige, the culture that's larger than you, the problem that company is solving. So when your attention is coupled with your intention, the key to attention plus intention is action. I can sit in my desk or in my cubicle or in my home office, and I can think about these things and I can intend these things all I want. I can be with people, but until I take action, and that's where the achievement prescription really soars, because you now have the confidence built up because you have the critical mass moving forward. Your thoughts are
Mm.
positive, your relationships are positive, you're choosing to be more with positive people than with negative people, the Kevins, right? Your intentions are set emotionally. And so now it's time to act. And that confident trust that the results are going to be such that you then zigzag through that. That is, you're going to make mistakes. You learn from them. Those are really learning experiences, and you move forward. Now, how do we make application of the achievement prescription to 2 different fields you ask about, recruiting and with team building? First of all, in recruiting, I'd go right back to the questions and say, tell me about the team that you work with now. You're going to learn so much from the way that person describes those individuals that they're spending the most time with. Because if that individual describes those persons in a certain way, that's what they're going to expect when they come to your position. So it gives you a great opportunity to say, well, let me distinguish our teams from the ones that you just described. Or you'll learn, hey, if they'll talk about that team in that negative fashion, they'll talk about our team in that way. So that's
Mm.
one example. Ask again, what's the best day at work ever for you? That tells you how their intentions align with the company mission and things like that. In terms of team building, man, you just walk right through the 5 core practices
Mhm.
and you help them develop that positive mindset and positive relationships. The interesting thing is, when you're developing those positive relationships, you notice a self-selection process then, because there are always persons, Kevins, if you will, who just aren't going to try to do the things like psychological safety and support, mutual support and benefit. They're not going to listen to each other. So they will self-select and go to another team when
Mm.
positive energy gets to be so much within that team. Or it gives you an amazing opportunity to say, hey, Joey, how do you think you fit with the team here? And then there's an opportunity for self-reflection and growth at that point.
Now, for a company that is maybe seeped in negative culture, or Kevin culture, as you call it, for them to make that turnaround using the work positive framework and even identifying the pockets of Kevin culture around the company, how long, in terms of time frame, how long do you think this would take in terms for a full transformation to actually happen?
Full transformation.
Is that even possible?
Well, um, you know, I would say because that's a compare and compete kind of statement. Full transformation would be very individual for that company.
Mm,
We things get messier before they get better because you're confronting the reality that there's some toxic behavior, there's some Kevin culture behavior in the
mm.
company. And some persons will self-select, but others will dig their heels in. And the more you try to create that positive work culture, the more they're going to resist. And that's
Resistance.
very honest conversations have to happen. What we like to do is our company and then our affiliate companies, we like to look at a 3-year process.
Mm.
Our goal is to avoid making the company dependent on us to be the transforming catalyst. Our goal is to empower, equip, and educate the company to put in place as SOPs those kinds of activities that help the company sustain and build and grow. And then we can get called back in year 4 and 5 for a tune up or something like that.
So, if a company wants to transform its recruitment approach to build a more positive or productive culture, what would be your first three recommended steps?
Wow, around the recruitment. Step one would be to ensure that you have that positive work culture within.
Mm.
Before I ever go out and invite somebody to join a team, I want to make sure we're presenting the best team possible. And that leads to the second step. Because that best team possible is there, it then becomes attraction, like we were talking about earlier. I'm going to want that recruit to meet with the team individually. I'm going to want them to sit in a team meeting and things like that. So I want them to experience part of that team. So my team's got to be on top of its game. We like to refer to it in Work Positive Nation, Lydia, as we grow people and profits. So we want them to get immensely immersed as much as possible into the people that are growing positive as they possibly can on that front end. So number one, make sure that your team culture is as positive as possibly can be. Number two, invite that recruit to come and experience that positivity. And then he or she is in a better position to decide, is this the team I want to be on? And then number three, ask the team, hey, what did you think of Joey when he was with us? He spent a day or two with us. What vibe did you get from him? How do you think he would fit? How could we help support Joey if he comes to work with us? Those are I know I rattled off three really powerful questions right there, but those are the kinds of questions that you would want to ask the team. So those are the 3 steps I'd take.
Well, thank you very much for your time and all these insights that you've just shared with us, Dr. Joey. So, for those who are listening in who might want to pick up a conversation with you about work positive or the Kevin culture, may have another name to share with you, maybe, where can they connect with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is our playground. That's where we share tons of content. Our Work Positive podcast airs weekly, and I get to talk to thought leaders and preferred employer HR leaders around the world. So you can listen to that wherever this fine podcast is heard. And also on LinkedIn, we have all kinds of materials. I give away a free book every month to whoever asked for it because I'm on a very active book writing schedule. And oh, by the way, they're short books. You can read them in about an hour. so feel free to come over to LinkedIn and we'll connect up there and just ask. You'll receive.
Thank you again, Dr. Joey. We have been in conversation with Dr. Joey Faucette, workplace culture expert and founder and president of Work Positive. Thank you for joining us, and remember to subscribe to stay tuned for more weekly episodes from All In Recruitment.